Hi Yogi, and welcome to another Slow Flow with me, Oceana. In this particular class, we're heading into our second week exploring the sort of 5 main pairs of meridian lines that run through the body according to traditional Chinese medicine, which we'll call TCM for short. And today we're looking particularly at the liver and gallbladder, with the liver really representing the yin organ in this case, and the gallbladder being more associated with yang energy. And really, of course, as we've done before, we'll be going through a yang to yin flow. So the latter part of this class will be holding those postures for longer periods of time so that we can really apply some acupressure to the parts of the body that are most closely associated with these meridian lines, where we can really apply that pressure and affect the energy flowing through these areas. So really the liver and gallbladder are predominantly associated with our sort of storage of blood within the physical body. They're also, on a more subtle level, thought to regulate the flow of qi, which is the TCM idea of energy that sort of keeps us alive, keeps us flowing. So they regulate the movement of qi through the body. And for that reason, it's fair to say that they're sort of powerhouse organs with a lot of importance and really keep us sort of moving with the flow of life rather than feeling hampered or stagnated by it. In the case of this class, that's going to mean a lot of twists and turns, some really fun transitions. But for that very same reason, you might like to set your screen up along the long edge of your yoga mat, where sort of when we're moving from the front to the back and back again, you'll be able to really glance sideways and just catch a glimpse of what we're doing so that you don't have to constantly look over your shoulder. Once you've set that up, we'll be starting in a kneeling position at the back of the yoga mat. And there's nothing you particularly need, but possibly towards the end of practice, you might like something that you can sit on. So that can be some pillows, blankets, or possibly even some books or bricks if you have them. So join me kneeling when you're ready, Yogi. So from your kneeling position, we'll briefly lean forward simply to tuck under the toes. And from there, sitting onto the heels, coming into toe stretch here. And you can rest the hands one on top of the other, just in your lap, allowing the shoulders to gently draw down towards the floor, allowing the crown of the head to lengthen towards the sky above. And gently bringing your attention to your breathing, following the breath from the nostrils down the throat. Watching it unfurl through the upper body, expanding into the belly, the chest, the ribs, and slowly watching the breath as it moves back out through the torso. And as you continue to follow your own breathing pattern here, really paying attention to those intricate, subtle details that continuously shift as you breathe. Allow yourself a little bit of time to really check in with yourself. So notice any physical sensations that are already present in the body here. Different parts of yourself that might really be calling for a little bit of attention at the beginning. And equally, really give a little bit of breathing space, a little bit of airtime to anything that happened before you stepped on your yoga mat, anything that might be a distraction to you for the next half hour or so of your practice. And then gently blink the eyes open. Let your attention widen back out into the room. And from here, let your left arm just drape down by the side of your left hip. Reach your right fingertips up and over the head. You could stay a little bit taller or let the left fingertips come to the floor, pushing into the ground to really expand the right side of the ribs towards the ceiling above you, coming into a little bit of a side bend here. Gently on your next inhale, draw yourself back through center. Again, either right hand is softly relaxing down by the side of the right hip and the left arm reaches over the head, or you're reaching all the way towards the floor with the bottom hand, really pressing the ground away and expanding through the left side of the ribs, finding just a few rounds of breath. And then allowing top hand to come all the way to the floor in front of you, leaning onto hands and knees, untucking the toes and giving the feet a little bit of a tap here, releasing the tops of the feet, tension that's accumulated at the bottom of the legs, ankles and the shins. So really vigorous tap here. And from there we'll come into a regular tabletop position where the hands are underneath the shoulders, the knees are underneath the hips, and we'll move through a couple of cat-cows here. So tucking under the toes, tailbone arches up, you lift through the chest and roll the shoulders back, looking forward. On the exhale, tops of the feet press into the floor as you round the spine towards the ceiling on the exhale, looking towards your belly button. Moving through a couple more rounds here as you inhale, arching the spine, looking up. On the exhale, pressing the floor away, really rounding the spine towards the sky. And really taking this time as well to check in with the joints. So really notice any sensations that are present here in the wrists, elbows, shoulders, all the vertebrae, the spine, the hips, knees, ankles and feet. The next time that you come back from that rounded position, we'll meet somewhere in the center here between those two postures, which is vaguely our neutral spine. And from there, tucking under the toes, we'll take a little side cat-cow action twice on each side. So on your next exhale, take your left ear towards the left hip. You're creating a little C or banana shape with your spine. On the inhale, float yourself back through center. On the exhale, take your right ear towards the right hip. Moving just one more time with the breath as you inhale through the midline. As you exhale, left ear towards the left hip. Inhaling through center and exhale, right ear towards the right hip. As you come back into the center, we'll see if we can combine both of those movements. And essentially you can imagine this as if you're really trying to roll the rib cage around the axis of the spine. So simply allow the chest to lift, the tailbone to arch, coming back into your cow stretch. Puff out the right side of your ribs and then round the spine up towards the ceiling, puffing out the left side of the ribs as you come back into cow stretch at the bottom. And then find that rotation a few times. So it's almost as if the shoulders and hips vaguely are staying in the same position, but the rib cage and the spine are rotating around those 2 points. Next time that your chest is drawing towards the floor and you're back in that cow stretch, you're going to take your left rib cage out, lift the spine up towards the ceiling into cat stretch, and right rib cage to the right side as you find a few of these circles in a clockwise direction. So for most of us, we would have gone the anti-clockwise direction before, and here simply reversing that movement a couple times. Gently, next time that you have lifted through the spine, allow yourself to come back into center, and with the toes still tucked under, we'll slowly lift the sitting bones up and back to find our first downward dog. So in that first downward dog, keeping the knees bent, we can have a little walk through the feet, a little pedal of the legs and shimmy of the hips as we ease into the back of the body. So not taking this first downward dog too seriously, but giving ourselves a little bit of time to settle in and maybe finding a few rounds of breath in stillness where you're really pushing through the index and thumb. You're thinking about spinning the inside of your elbows forward so you can feel the shoulder blades really coming into an external rotation. Slowly here, step your big toes together at the back of the mat. On an inhale, lift your right leg up and back for three-legged dog. Really reach through the top toes and lengthen the body. As you exhale, bring the right knee all the way in towards the chest. Let the shoulders come on top of the wrist and squeeze the knee towards the nose, really rounding the spine. Gently step your right foot all the way behind your left wrist, so you're actually crossing the foot in front of you towards the opposite side of your yoga mat. Take your body weight into the hands and right foot. Lift the left leg and step the foot all the way to the opposite side of the mat. So you turn around 180 degrees again here. Walk your feet to hip distance, bend the knees very, very generously, sit back into that invisible chair to find Utkatasana. Reaching through the center of the chest, spin the pinky fingers in, lifting up and sitting a little bit lower as you exhale. On your next out breath, swan dive all the way down. Maybe lengthen the sitting bones up towards the ceiling. Open up through the hamstrings and the backs of the legs, really folding in. On the next inhale, walk the hands forward. Find your way back into downward dog. And slowly, as you step the big toes together at the back, left leg lifts. You find three-legged dog on the second side. As you exhale, left knee draws towards the chest. Again, really round the spine. Touch the knee towards the nose. And then step or shimmy the foot through in between the hands this time. Spin the back heel down and open it up into warrior two as you breathe in. So you're windmilling the arms, keeping a generous bend on the left knee, reaching through the knuckles, allowing the shoulders to be soft, and looking over your left ring finger. Catch the breath. On your next exhale, bring the right hand to the back thigh, left arm circles over the head to find your reverse warrior here. And then we'll be a little bit tricksy again, and we're going to change the legs around and everything else stays the same. So our left toes are going to turn in as the right toes turn out, and we can rest the right hand on top of the front thigh, allowing the top shoulder to roll back, finding our extended side angle and really reaching through the top hand. Of course, you can take this a little bit further by bringing the bottom hand to the floor. Maybe you've got a yoga brick there, or you could even go for a half or full bind by dropping the top hand behind you and reaching underneath your front thigh. Otherwise, my suggestion is you stay a little bit taller today. Allow the chest to spin open. And then gently bring the top hand all the way down to the floor, underneath its own shoulder, tuck under the back toes. Press the floor away as you reach your right fingertips up into a simple twist. And maybe you're staying here, or maybe you're coming onto the outer edge of the left foot and peeling the right knee towards the sky, lifting up into side plank position. Slowly as you exhale, top hand comes all the way down, pressing yourself back into downward dog as you exhale here. Allow a few rounds of breath to settle your heart rate, to let your breath really catch up with you. And let the body soften and notice the differences between the left and right side of the body. When you're ready, step the big toes together at the back. On an inhale, left leg lifts. Again, you're really reaching through the left big toe, almost as if you're going to pull yourself back using the leg. As you exhale, bring the knee towards the nose, round the forehead in, squeeze the leg in, and then step or shimmy the foot all the way behind your right wrist this time. So really reaching towards the opposite side of the yoga mat. Our body weight is going to come forward into the hands and front leg as we pick up the right foot and turn 180 degrees, stepping the foot down at hip distance. We're facing the back of the mat here. Deep bend in the knees as we inhale. We find, again, our chair pose, sitting bones drawing back. The chest is lifted. That invisible chair behind us, supporting us as we sit a little bit lower. And with the next exhale, we fold back down, allowing the chest to soften towards the thighs. On an inhale, walking the hands forward into downward dog. The big toes step towards one another. On an inhale, this time the right leg lifts, three-legged dog, reaching through the big toe. And on the exhale, the knee draws forward. You round the spine in, press the floor away, and step or shimmy the foot all the way between the hands. Back heel spins down. On the inhale, cartwheel the arms. Find your warrior two. Reach through the knuckles, lengthen the tops of the arms. Really press into the outer edge of the back foot and the front big toe. Let the fingertips be soft. Let your eyes soften over the front ring finger. On an exhale, bring the left hand to the back thigh, reach your right fingertips up and over the head, reverse your warrior here. Really puff up through the right chest. And then we're again swapping just the legs, everything else stays as it is. So from here, right toes turn in, left toes turn out, left forearm can rest on the front thigh, coming into our side angle position. And again, you're maybe staying here in this taller version, really rolling the top shoulder back, lifting through the center of the chest, possibly even looking up underneath your armpit. Maybe the bottom hand could come to a brick or the floor. Maybe you're binding the hands behind you. And then gently, top hand is going to come all the way to the floor underneath the right shoulder. Left fingertips lift towards the sky. We could stay in this simple twist with the back heel lifted, or we might shimmy the front foot a little bit more into the middle of the mat so that we can roll onto the outer edge of the back foot. And if that's happened and you're still feeling a little bit brave, then you might slowly peel the left knee away from the floor and find a little side plank, really reaching through the bottom hip, maybe extending the top leg. And eventually making your way back into a downward dog. Left hand comes to the floor, left foot comes to the ground, and you press down through the hands, lifting the sitting bones up and back, allowing the body to settle back into symmetry for a brief moment. Gradually from here, big toes touch. On the inhale, right leg lifts up and back. On the exhale, right knee draws forward towards the right wrist. And you can spin the right foot forward. You might even use your left hand to help you guide the leg to the front. The back knee can come down or turn to the side. So some of you might like to keep both knees bent so that you're coming into a version of the pose known as deer pose, which is more of a yin posture. If you want to come into full pigeon, you want to straighten the back leg and you might shimmy the back knee a little bit further away. If your hips are very far away from the floor, you just want to fill the space underneath with maybe some pillows. You could grab bricks, books, whatever it takes to make yourself feel really supported here. And whichever option you've chosen, we're going to turn to face over the right shin bone. And you could spend a couple of breaths here supporting yourselves in this slightly more upright position, which is a sort of back bend version of pigeon pose. The hands can be wider than the shoulders so that you sort of reduce a little bit of the effort that you have to put in here at the end as we head towards our yin postures. And possibly slowly, if you do want to go a little bit further, you could walk the fingertips forward. You could let the elbows become a little bit softer. Some of you might want to come onto your forearms. And if the elbows are comfortable on the floor, you could bend the elbows and let the head rest in the heel of the hands, or you might stack your hands or fists underneath the forehead if you want to come all the way down. So making those small adjustments here when we stay a little bit longer in our yin postures to keep the pressure on the body, that tension, even and equal throughout the whole duration of the pose. So for the whole time that we're here, we're really working to maintain the same level of tension. And we can start really, really light. In fact, my suggestion would always be to start a little bit more cautiously as we ease into our yin poses. And maybe over time we sort of ride the edge of those sensations that are both pleasant and maybe a little bit unpleasant at the same time. And we sort of keep moving with those sensations, going a little bit deeper into them, backing out slightly, moving back in. It's this constant tug of war, this back and forth. Gently on your next inhale, bring the hands underneath you, walk yourself upright, and lean all the way across into your right hip and thigh so that you can swing your left leg all the way forward. Now we'll come into half shoelace, or it's a slight variation on half shoelace. So you might like to have your left foot in front of the shin bone. Some of you might step the foot all the way across the thigh. And we'll start with a little bit of a side bend here. So you can plant the left hand all the way to the outside of the hip. Really reach up through the right fingertips. Press into your bottom hand to really ground your right sitting bone towards the floor. And then find a little bit more length through the top hand. Puff out the right ribs. Take a deep inhale here. And possibly gently, you're going to bring the right elbow across the top thigh. You might stay here simply resting the hand on the chest. Or some of you might like to deepen this twist by slowly lifting the back hand, bringing the palms to touch. And the left hand could press lightly into the right so that you're pushing your thigh away from you, spinning the chest a little bit more to the left. And finding a few rounds of breath here where every inhale really presents you with an opportunity to lift through the center of the spine, growing a little bit taller. And every exhale is an opportunity, as the belly empties, to find a little bit more of that twisting action. So again, there is this slight tug of war, but this time we're a little bit more interested in how the breath is really sort of affecting that tug of war. Slowly making this your last exhale. On an inhale, turn to face towards your top knee. Bring the hands across to the right side. Briefly bow down, de-rotate the spine. And come all the way back up to seated. And from here, we'll simply swing the top foot all the way behind us, tucking under the toes and briefly stepping it back into a downward facing dog. So you can have just a moment here to really feel into left and right side of the body. This has really been our sort of symmetrical check-in pose throughout this practice today. Now gradually here, when you're ready, we'll step the big toes together again. Lifting this time the left leg up and back as we inhale into three-legged dog. On the exhale, the left knee comes forward towards the left wrist. And you can bring the right knee down. You might like to use your right hand to draw the left foot a little bit further forward so the shin bone is about parallel with the front of your yoga mat and you're flexing the front toes. Again, option one is to bend both knees so that you have this sort of 90-degree angle on both legs. And that's deer pose, which for most of us tends to be a little bit more forgiving on the hip joints. If you do want to go into a full pigeon pose, you can simply lean forward again, tuck under your back toes, spin the right knee all the way down to the floor, and then let all 5 toes on the right foot turn to the ground as well. We're starting again with this back bend variation. So the hands are as wide as the yoga mat, wider than the shoulders. We're pressing the floor away with the fingertips, spinning the inner elbows forward, keeping that lift through the chest, but the eyes might close here as we draw our attention a little bit more inwards at the end of our practice. Closing the eyes really gives us that incentive to notice a little bit more the sensations coursing through the body. And gradually you might choose to deepen that forward fold sensation. So you could walk the hands a little bit further away from you. You might soften the elbows. You might come onto forearms. Again, you could have the elbows on the ground and support the forehead with the hands. You could cross one hand on top of the other or make loose fists to support the head here. And I always suggest that you do support the head whenever it's possible so that you can really give the neck muscles just a little bit of rest. You might even roll the forehead a few times from side to side, just checking in with the muscles at the back of the head and around the front of the neck. you might possibly find stillness and really let the top jaw drop away from the top row, or the bottom row of teeth rather, allowing the tongue to soften away. So that as the jaw becomes a little bit more relaxed, most of us will find that that has an immediate effect on the muscles in the neck, all the way down into the muscles in the shoulders. The trapezius muscles tend to have that sort of immediate relaxation response. And then allow just that softness that's coursing through your face and neck to trickle down through the rest of the body, into the arms, the spine, the hips, the legs, the feet. Allow everything to become a little bit heavier as you breathe out. Gently, gently, as you inhale, lift the head first. Press the floor away. Make your way up to a comfortable seat. And again, we're leaning into the left leg here, simply to spin the back foot forward. And you might just allow the right foot to land in front of the shin bone if it feels quite strong already. Otherwise, you might take the right foot all the way across to the outside of the left thigh. And whichever option you choose, you want to make sure that the big toe is fully grounded on the floor. And really all we're going for here is that as we cross the legs, we're really opening up the lower back area. So we're moving the hips away from the spine, creating a little bit more space there. So if your foot is in front of the shin bone and you're already feeling that sensation of the hips really moving forward, then you're in the right place. And for some of us, we sort of have to go a little bit further to feel the exact same sensation. So sometimes people get really hung up on, achieving a certain version of the pose in yoga, and actually, doing the more advanced things sometimes is just a case of being a little bit too mobile, which isn't necessarily a good thing. So again, we start with that side bend version, bringing the right hand to the floor first. Left fingertips lift over the head, and we're pressing the bottom hand into the ground so that we can really drop that left sitting bone down towards the floor, reaching a little bit more through the top fingertips as we do that, and really pressing the left side of the ribs up towards the ceiling, opening the chest. Maybe the top shoulder rolls back and you might even look up. Finding a few rounds of breath here. Letting the breath become a little bit softer, a little bit more expansive through the ribs. And gently here, top elbow is going to come all the way across. If you can, hook the elbow across the thigh. Otherwise, you could wrap the arm around the top knee instead. And of course, if the elbow has hooked across the thigh, you might rest the top hand on top of the chest, or you could bring the back hand to join so that your palms touch in Anjali Mudra, prayer position. And from there, the right hand lightly presses into the left palm so that you can spin the chest open. And we're here for a few rounds of breath, so really see if you can allow every inhale to lengthen the spine and every exhale to give you a little bit more twist. And of course, again, if you're in a place in that twist that already feels quite interesting to you, where there's already a lot of sensations that are sort of at the edge of pleasure and slight sort of tension, then you might choose to just stay exactly where you are and not work any deeper. But of course, over time, as you stay a little bit longer, you might find that those sensations start to shift a little bit. And for most of us, that's usually around that 60-second mark. So after about a minute of being in a posture, the body starts to release some of that immediate response to hold everything in. And then we find that maybe the muscles are a little bit more willing to give in, to relax and release, to soften. On your next inhale, unravel yourself to face all the way towards your top knee, and take both hands across towards the outside of your left hand. Bow down, de-rotate the spine. Inhale to come all the way back up. And this time we'll simply uncross the legs, planting them hip distance and rolling all the way onto the back side. Allowing the spine to come all the way to the floor, really allowing the shoulders to drop and taking a moment just to let the spine sort of adapt to this different relationship of gravity. Gradually, you could walk the legs forward. And we'll come into banana pose, bananasana. So you may choose to hold on to your elbows above the head, or if you have the space, then you can straighten the arms. From here, we'll start by walking the hips all the way across to the left side, and then reaching the legs a little bit more, walking the heels to the right, and the arms might follow. So you're literally bringing your whole body into this sort of banana shape, bending across to the right side of the room or the right side of your yoga mat. And if you do want to deepen this, step one would be to hook your left ankle across the right foot. So you're giving that leg a little bit of an anchor. And you might, if you've got the arms extended, you might bring the right hand and wrap it around the left wrist so that you can actually draw that left wrist a little bit further to the right side. And then see if you can let the left shoulder be really heavy. Let the inhale do some of the work for you here. So as you breathe in, that posture naturally deepens as the ribs expand and softens as you exhale. And that constant ebb and flow of the breath, shifting the pose. And then gently here, we'll walk the hands and shoulders back into center. We'll uncross the feet and walk them back in, taking just a moment in the middle to really feel again that difference in the left and right side of the body. Eventually we can bend the knees and briefly shift the hips across towards the right side of the mat, walking the feet to the left, walking the hands to the left. And to deepen again, you might cross your right ankle above the left toes. You might use your left hand to draw, pardon me, you might use your left hand to draw the right wrist all the way across to the opposite side of the yoga mat. And gradually here, letting the mind rest on your breathing one last time. Keeping the eyes closed as you observe that movement of the breath, which might be particularly obvious in the right side of the ribs. So as the ribs expand, usually for most of us, the sensations of this side bend will become a lot more obvious, a lot more present within our mind. And as we exhale, the sensations shift to different parts of the ribs, waist and hips. Gently, gently, as you inhale, walk the feet back in, release the hands, bring yourself all the way to center, and just for a brief moment, let the arms rest down by your side, turn the palms up towards the ceiling, let the feet be wide, and just let the whole body really rest into the floor, dropping the shoulders, the chest, the head, relaxing the feet, calves, thighs, hips. Taking a few deep rounds of breath and noticing where the things that were really drawing at your attention at the beginning of your practice, where those have moved to, whether they're still really quite present or whether they've shifted slightly in their importance to you. Gently on your next exhale, bring the knees towards the chest, really hug them in. Reach your left arm up and over the head and slowly roll onto the left side of the mat, pushing into the top hand and making your way up to a comfortable seated position so you can have the legs crossed, one in front of the other, bringing the palms to touch at the chest, bowing the forehead towards the fingertips, and using this final moment of your practice possibly to give yourself just a little bit of gratitude for showing up for yourself in the first place, which is always that most difficult part of our yoga practice. And finally, you might choose to plant a sankalpa, a good intention for yourself or for somebody that matters to you in your life. And this is where we'll close the practice. So namaste yogi, and thank you so much for joining me in today's class. Of course, if you enjoyed the practice, do give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and if you would be so kind, please share it with all your good yogi friends. I'd love to see them here to join our community. And if you have any comments, questions or feedback, please drop me a line below. And of course, if you want to find me anywhere else in the meantime, my social media links are in the video description. And I hope to see you back on your yoga mat very shortly. Thank you so much for joining me. Bye, yogi.